The iPhone line has been big and small over the years, but this year, Apple finally made one of their best iPhones, and it's also one of their cheapest. Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and today I'm going to be reviewing my favorite iPhone so far, the iPhone 12 mini. Check out the social media listed above, and let's get started. As annoying as this size may seem for someone who normally uses big phones, I actually quite enjoy this. A lot. It is what the iPhone SE second generation was supposed to be, a compact phone with an all-screen design. But I'm glad they didn't go with the original 4.9-inch screen that most likely would have showed up on the original size of the iPhone SE. This 5.4-inch Super Retina XDR display is completely flat, just like the rest of the 12 series, and I absolutely love it. It is, oddly enough, the highest pixel density on the four phones at 476 pixels per inch, but the lowest resolution at 2340 by 1080. It gets plenty bright at 625 nits, but can hit 1200 nits with HDR content. The screen is nice until you watch content or show pictures to other people, which requires you to get closer to the screen. Even though it does have HDR support for the screen, it is still pretty small. Most games don't have any issues, but really it feels like you're using an iPhone SE when viewing content. But normal usage still feels like a good enough size screen. The thing I love about this phone is obviously it's pretty easy to just stick in your pocket, but it's also very light at 135 grams, making it the lightest iPhone since the iPhone 6. The front and back are flat, with the camera glass being the only exception. Speaking of, the camera glass area does still scratch up screens, just like the iPhone 12 Pro Max can, so Scratchgate officially lives on with the 12 series. The phone is flat on the bottom and the top, allowing you to take stable photos and time-lapse video if you're into that. Really, the best thing about this phone is how easy it is to just fit into people's lives without being crazy expensive or bulky. There are some downsides though. The battery isn't the best at 2227 mAh, but it is much better than the 1821 mAh cell found in the iPhone SE second generation. With this said, still getting through the day isn't really that big of an issue. Even with 5G on, I didn't really have any trouble getting over 3 hours of screen on time, while bigger phones give me about 4 to 5 hours of screen on time. Again, getting to the end of the day was never an issue for me. Given the size, there are other things that are smaller, like the speakers, haptic engine, and the notch area. The speakers don't sound bad, but they definitely aren't the same as larger phones. Still, they get the job done, just like the haptic engine. The notch isn't smaller, but the area next to it has shrunk, which could be annoying for some. For me, it's not that big of a deal. Now, this may not be the size that you wanted, but for others that want smaller phones, this is probably the only phone with an amazing camera, fast processor, small design, water resistance up to 6 meters or almost 20 feet, wireless charging, and much, much more. Speaking of, this phone does support MagSafe just like the iPhone 12 Pro Max does, just at 12 watts apparently. Not sure why, but apparently the inside of the phone doesn't make a full circle of magnets like the other phones do. This probably isn't the perfect example of what a compact phone in 2020 can be, but this definitely has to be one of the best out there right now. Really, I don't need to explain this section. Even though these are the cheapest of the best cameras that you can get, they're still outrageously good. Let's start with the front camera, which works for me. It's still the same 12 megapixel sensor found in phones like the iPhone 11, but slightly better. Now you get extra stuff like night mode, deep fusion, and smart HDR3, which I'm actually not sure if the last one is the same as the next generation smart HDR. Both the front and rear cameras support Dolby Vision up to 30 frames per second, which doesn't really mean much to me, but it will look nicer than what you see right now. The camera is perfect for selfies and portraits, but Apple still lacks a focusable camera. As for the rear cameras, again, you get pretty much the same cameras as the iPhone 11, but better. The aperture on the wide sensor is f1.6 over the f1.8 that's found in the iPhone 11, allowing more color for photos and videos. Then we get night mode and deep fusion for all of the cameras, which allow for better photos and more detail on either rear camera, even though you can only capture 12 megapixels of data. This gives you bright and full pictures during the day and amazing shots at night. Well, in most cases. As for the video, same idea. We have 4K at 60 frames per second as normal, but you do get Dolby Vision if you shoot at 30 frames per second in any resolution. Even then, these cameras shoot out amazing video and photos, but you are obviously lacking the telephoto lens, but honestly, I never really needed that sensor unless I'm trying to be lazy. Ultra wide is cool, but I never really found a reason to actually use it. It's still nice to see that option and that it's 120 degrees, which is pretty large. It is nice knowing that in any mode, any sensor, you're going to get amazing shots. And yeah, the back camera does still have a beauty mark. This phone has a 5nm A14 Bionic chip with 4GB of RAM, and it is crazy fast. Like the iPhone 12 Pro Max, performance was never an issue on this phone. All the iPhones of the last couple of years are super fast, but there are times when this phone just somehow feels a little bit snappier than phones like the iPhone 11 Pro Max. The RAM is the same, but feels more optimized. I would have apps sitting in the background for a day or so, and it would just launch with no issues. This is easily the smallest, fastest phone you can buy, if you're alright with being stuck with the iOS operating system. While there are many things that go into the processor, most of it focuses on the camera. Sure, the graphics processing is outrageous, just like the actual processor itself, making everyday activities or playing games such a simple task with this A14 chip. But another thing is the camera processing itself. Even on Apple's site, the specs pretty much show half of it being focused on the camera itself. While I can argue that a fast processor isn't needed to support all those things, there are things like extended dynamic range at 60 frames per second or HDR Dolby Vision at 30 frames per second, which do require a lot of processing power. It is a little bit annoying because Apple ProRAW seems to be something that requires processing power, yet it's missing from this phone. I guess it's set for the Pro models. This processor makes authentication like Face ID just slightly faster, even if the Face ID unit is pretty much the same as the iPhone 11. We get things like Bluetooth 5.0 and Wi-Fi 6, both that aren't new, but the latter is good for helping future-proof this phone. Another thing you get is 5G with lots of 5G bands, with millimeter wave or ultra-wideband support. This is all part of the large amount of connectivity that this phone has, like the U1 chip, gigabit LTE, NFC, and so on. Just like the iPhone SE, I find myself in the same position with this phone. It's a small phone with more power and things that I may or may not need, but I'm also glad that this phone does have all of those options. This year, I like what Apple has done, but they had to make this phone better than last year. See, the iPhone XR started at $749 and the iPhone 11 started at $699, but this year the iPhone 12 mini starts at $699. Well, actually it's $729 if you want to buy it unlocked. Then the iPhone 12 starts at $799 or $829, almost like they made the mini just to justify the pricing of the standard iPhone 12. With this said, I feel like Apple made the right phone. They stuck to 5G with millimeter wave support, a compact design, wireless charging, and water resistance, which both require paid certifications, by the way, and premium parts like glass on the back, ceramic shield on the front, and aluminum on the sides. You get some of the best cameras out there in such a small size. Clearly, with the name Mini, the main focus is the small size, and I feel like this is possibly the best that Apple can do right now. But again, at the price, it should be. And that's my review of the iPhone 12 mini, my favorite iPhone so far, somehow. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section or message me on Twitter. I get bored over there. And feel free to follow me on the social media listed above, subscribe and hit that bell button so you know when my next review and repair videos come out. Thanks for watching.